When it comes to gaming mice, I think there's really three types of consumers. First is the athlete, the esports player who just wants the best competitive advantage and is looking for every possible thing they can do to be better than their opponent. Second is the enthusiast, somebody who likes just picking up mice, probably has multiple on their desk, and this probably won't be the last one they buy this year. And lastly is the value buyer, the person who's budget conscious. They really want to squeeze the juice out of every last dollar spent and make sure they're getting the best bang for their buck. The Viper V3 Pro is a really great mouse for the first two. As somebody who is a value buyer in the past, somebody who is budget conscious, if you had asked me if I would ever buy a $160 gaming mouse, I would say that that's ridiculous. Now, if you want the best of the best, on paper, it's the best mouse out there. It has the latest and greatest sensor with motion sync technology, which gives you better tracking, an 8,000 Hz polling rate dongle included, although it can't be used with other models, which I find kind of annoying. But it does have this really cool battery saver mode where it will work as 4K polling rate in-game, and then when out of game, it'll drop down to 1,000 Hz. Personally, that's what I've been using. I've put about 50 hours on this thing, maybe a little bit more, and I'm at about 19% battery, so seems to be working pretty well. Speaking of the battery, at those lower polling rates, it is rated up to 95 hours. The switches, Razer's new Gen 3 optical switches, they feel very crisp, very snappy, very tactile, absolutely no pre-travel at all. In hand, it feels really nice. The coating is their smooth touch coating. Feels almost like a spray painted rubber, I guess is the best way I could describe it. Definitely the grippiest non-textured coating I felt on a mouse so far. And the shape is kind of like a mixture between the G Pro X Superlight and the old Viper shape. We've got the signature dips in Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 and flare at the nose that the Viper had, but the hump on the back is raised up a little bit higher, just like the GPX. On the software side of things, it really outshines its competitors as well. It has single-digit DPI adjustments for anybody that actually cares about that, and this sensitivity matcher where you can input your old mouse and it will do some calibrations to make the sensor feel like it did on your old mice. Considering this is probably a new shape, I'm assuming you're going to have to make some adjustments in your game style anyway, but I guess that can be good for esports athletes if you don't want to have a break-in period. So if all these features sound great and better than other mice, then why do I think it's not a great value proposition? Pretty simple. For the average person, I don't think any of that stuff matters. Unless you're using the mouse at a really high level for hours upon hours a day, you're not going to notice a difference between polling rates. The switches, I said they're the best out there. There's no doubt about that, but switches have gotten pretty good these days. I don't think for the average person, you're going to notice a night and day difference between your Pulsar or your Lamzu $100 mouse compared to this $160 mouse for the extra $60 to really be worth it. The shape, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing great about it either. It's a pretty safe shape. It's nothing groundbreaking that I think is going to make people want to go out and spend an extra $60 on a mouse for. And the coating does stand out to me, especially at 54 grams. It makes it very easy to maneuver around and feel like an extension of your hand. I will give it that. But I don't think that's something that can't be accomplished with a cheaper mouse around the same weight with some grips. And that brings us to the software and the sensor. The sensitivity matcher, useful for esports players, probably not that big of a deal for the average Joe. Like I said, you're going to have to get used to a new shape anyway. You might as well get used to a new sensor while you're at it. And the other most notable feature to me in here is the 4K 1K battery saving mode where it switches between the two, whether you're in game or out of game. And I already said I don't think the average person is going to notice a difference between the two anyway. So if you're worried about saving battery, you can just keep it at 1 or 2,000 Hz polling rate. So at the end of the day, if you're looking into buying this mouse, I think you really just need to take a step back and figure out where you sit in that categories of consumers that I mentioned earlier. If you're an esports athlete, then yes, it has the best switches, the best sensor. As long as you like the shape, you can then use the calibration tool to make the sensor feel like your old mouse did as far as DPI goes. Solid buy. If you're an enthusiast, then I think this is a solid buy as well. I can see this hanging around for a while and kind of taking over the throne as the gold standard where the GPX used to sit. And if you're just the average consumer, value is the name of the game, you're looking for the best bang for your buck, then no, this is not a great option. I think a lot of the features that this boasts that make it $160 aren't actually worth the extra $60 than if you were to just go with a Pulsar or a Lamzu mouse. Even if you care about 4K polling, I think the Pulsar dongle is $20 and Lamzu's $13, so you're still only sitting around $120. And obviously there's tons of other mice out there as well, not just Pulsar or Lamzu, those are just two that come to mind for me. After all, it is called the Viper V3 Pro. It's for pro consumers, enthusiasts, and esports athletes. I'm sure they market it towards the average person and they'll take all the sales they can get, but in my opinion, that's not who this mouse is for and that's not who should be buying this mouse. So yeah, the Viper V3 Pro. It's not for everybody.